Right then, let's review some music.
Yes. So many facts this week.
Oh, more facts. Bloody. Okay, if you dared me to watch last week's video all the way through, I still haven't done it.
52 minutes though.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but I've made notes, but there's so many facts that I've forgotten half of them, and I'm not going to worry about it. It doesn't really matter, does it? You can insert more facts into the comment section below. Thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's actually some of the best facts come out in the comment section.
Mm.
That's not true. I've been saying that to sort of divert attention away from the fact that we're going to have incredibly fact-laden episode.
Well, we might make people angry this week. We only had one angry comment from a Maiden fan.
I'm really surprised about that, because I'm pretty down on Iron Maiden, and normally that elicits some kind of response.
Yeah, I mean the comment made no sense because his opinion was our opinion pretty much. But except he liked Rhymes of the Ancient Mariner, but apart from that, yeah. Okay. So he has the gift of second sight. He is the chosen one. I'm trying to grow a little wispy moustache. My parents don't understand me. Can we do prog next week? Because this was hard work, honestly. I'm joking, of course. They're both good albums, although I'll throw them on the floor. They are both good albums, but having to do... It's been 5 weeks, because we had a break. Technically, that meant one of them we had to have for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, metal and metal and metal and metal and metal. Started to really great, to be honest, because you have to listen to it. It's different, isn't it, when you have to and you don't want to. So I'm fully aware that these are both brilliant albums. Bear that in mind. And actually, for the first time, there's actually a meaningful comparison. It is meaningful to compare these albums. They were compared at the time. Yeah, same year, different directions in time. One is looking back. Yeah, Maiden sounded old by moving forward.
Yeah. And
Metallica are looking forward. That's the next, hugely influential in time of stuff that happened, 1970s, 70s, widescreen, kitchen sink, Jethro Tull and Genesis. Awesome production for the 80s. There's keyboards on it, which is the controversial thing. You think, keyboards, and it's the 80s. But actually, that means it sounds more 70s, because it's keyboards, 70s, And they're just doing what they do, really. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to do 70s music in the 80s, you might as well go the whole hog and do an actual thing like that. That's hugely produced and everything going on and a concept album. And then we have a Down With The Kids looking to the 90s album. It doesn't mean it's like the 90s in that sense, because it's just changed metal, basically. This changed metal more than Master of Puppets. That sounds like heavy metal after 1988. It's patchy. It all sounds the same, but the cool kids like Justice, the noobs like Black Album, or in our case, the 13-year-olds who've never heard rock before, like the Black Album because it was the new one, But yeah, it's flawed. It's this dry production. Obviously, we're going to talk about why that is. It's lots of guitars and lots of shouting, and the other things are happening in the background. And there's some cardboard boxes being patted in the background as well. It is dunderheaded Beavis and Butthead music, but that is very unkind because it's very good. And there's at least one good song on there, and all the subtlety, all the musicality and the complexity, and the tastefulness and the beauty on Master of Puppets is replaced with lots of riffs and good guitar playing. And this guy who does write songs, but basically he's a music fan, tries to play the drums and lots of guitar. And it's those two people very loudly. But it is a good album. It is a good album. So, music for music's sake. Music to be cool to. 90s. 70s. Guess which one I prefer. Guess. You don't need to guess, do you? Sam's he's going to tell us how much he likes all the mythological magic bollocks on the lyrics of that one. Go.
Okay, so seventh thud of a seventh thud. Right, okay.
Third.
So, yeah, I think it's the very first line.
7 deadly sins.
I think it might be, 7 deadly sins, 7 ways to win, 7 holy paths to hell, and your trip begins.
Mm.
Now, normally, I would look at that and go, oh my God. What a complete pile of poo and pants and everything else. And I did think that initially on song 1, Moonchild.
Just the title of the song, I thought, yeah, sounds like
And you know, I mean, I've over our little series of Iron Maiden versus Metallica, I've said, you know, this is 12-year-old stuff. This is appealing to the 12-year-old boy, and I've said that because that's the part of me which chimes with the material, the sort of like my inner child. Yeah, waiting for stupid comments about
your child,
my inner child, and you know, I've kind of dismissed it because it's a bit uninspiring, but actually this isn't too bad, you know. I mean, it is a sort of concept album around the seventh son of a seventh son, and if anyone's going to do a concept album around the seventh son of the seventh son, it's going to be Iron Maiden. The issue I have primarily is that my impression of Iron Maiden is they do it kind of flippantly almost. You can do, I mean, you could say it's comic book style aesthetic, yeah?
Yeah.
So it has to be very light. But Alan Moore's a comic book writer,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't say that's very light.
No.
Yeah, so if Alan Moore was to do a comic based on Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, that theme, he would find an angle that was genuinely interesting, yeah? And relate it to modern life or something, yeah? Politics or whatever. Iron Maiden won't do that. They'll say, this is our seventh album.
Let's call it Seventh Son.
Let's call it Seventh Son of Seventh. Have you got any songs that might fit in with that theme? And then they'll sort of turn it into... and that'll be their concept, which is it's just a bit weak, isn't it, really?
Well, Steve Harris genuinely rung up Bruce Dickinson and asked him that. It's a good idea, isn't it?
Well, actually...
I think he said, actually, no, but give him a minute.
I mean, it's right down Bruce Dickinson's sort of street, isn't it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, this should be Iron Maiden at their best. The highest point, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't hate it. I quite liked it. And I think what it is, although we do a music review, I actually find music quite boring. As it's presented on its own.
Yes.
And if it's toned down in the mix, as it is with a concept album or something like this.
It's how it's dressed up, isn't it? It's still the same chords.
It just helps somewhat. And, you know, I see it suddenly rings sort of like little bells in there, which I quite, you know, I quite go for. So in that sense, this is an Iron Maiden success in my mind. As far as the actual execution goes, it's typical Iron Maiden, you know, very good. Actually, a lot of the guitar sort of solos and stuff like that, and sort of some of the licks, reminds me of Guns N' Roses a bit. I'm pretty sure
it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Guns N' Roses.
The same notes, isn't it?
Yeah. There are several voices in the story, although it's not really a story. It's just like just about. It's you know, like most concept albums. So you've got Satan and Moonchild, and then you've got obviously the Seventh Son and the Seventh Son, and then you've got a prophet somewhere in there. Can't remember which one. The prophecy, maybe. Yeah. And those voices don't come out very clearly. The concept album, you want them to come out quite clearly, not sort of like operatic in the sense that, you know, ridiculous. But if you think of The Wall or something like, the teacher has got a very distinctive sort of voice.
And they're all Roger Waters.
Yeah, and they're all Roger.
For years, it never occurred to me. It's just him.
Yeah.
Doing all those voices.
Bruce.
Yeah.
He does attempt it. You know, the Lucifer sort of character is a rah 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 sort of voice, but I don't think that they pick it out in the production or whatever, and don't give it sort of emphasis it needs to be on a pure concept album. That's sort of one of the slight criticisms I'd have, but I feel quite pragmatic about that. You know, it's not sort of like, it's not undermining the album in any real sense. I'm pretty sure if you've got your ear tuned into Iron Maiden, you'd pick that up. And you didn't, you know.
I suppose so.
You'd enjoy that. I don't know. So yeah, better than expected. I mean, for me, this is much more interesting than anything else we reviewed Iron Maiden wise.
Yeah. Well, basically, you know, they were, with the previous albums, they were only hinting at being that stuff, but actually 80s. So now it's like, well, they've just gone the whole hog. Why not do it fully? Go the whole thing. Yeah. And
Seventh Son of the Seventh Son is a pretty good song. You know.
Yeah, and it is the same as Wrong with the Action Mariner, but we won't worry about that.
Doesn't matter. I mean, I did find one kind. You know, I was looking on the internet, and there's one guy wrote about Infinite Dreams.
Yeah.
I hate to make such a moronic comment, but this is simply the greatest song of all time, and it will be played at my funeral as they lower my casket into the earth.
Infinite Dreams.
It just seems to be a postulative wanderlust as undertaken by someone plagued by horrible dreams, which may either be horrible due to their nightmarishness or because of the dreamers seeing truths about the universe and starting to find themselves inadequately prepared for what there is out there, what they've tapped into.
Wow, I'm blown away.
That's
yeah.
I think that's Iron Maiden fans. Reading an awful lot.
Well, he's talking. That's a fan talking bollocks because they really like the song.
Yeah, I mean to say that's the one that's going to be played as they lower casket. I mean, fair play, he's thought about it. I hope he hasn't got there yet. I mean, that comment was 2003.
All right.
He obviously bloody loves this album and that song.
Infinite Dreams is an interesting one.
Yeah,
that's probably might be my favourite on there. Really? Steve Harris hates it.
Really?
Yeah, he said after the tour, he said we're never playing that again, and they've not played it since. It's really strange.
So yeah, a bit of a thumbs up from me, surprisingly. You didn't expect that, did you, Kev?
No. I thought you'd say, "Oh, I hate it, boring," but at least it's or something. Yeah.
And Justice for All.
65 minutes.
I have largely dismissed this album.
It's longer than the Black Album.
I think I bought this at the same time as the Black Album.
Oh.
And you've got to I asked myself the question, why? Because I listened to the Black Album, then I listened to this, and it just sounds shit.
Terrible. Yeah, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? You have to dig to find out that it's good, because it's the sound of it is awful.
This is the first one, I'm going to do some real facts here. This is the first one with Jason Newsted.
Yeah.
And apparently they didn't like his bass playing, so it is buried into the mix to the point that you cannot hear it.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that, I think.
They've also done something to the drumming.
It sort of emphasises.
It's the precursor to Saint Anger. It's just sort of it sounds terrible. And given that, I really thought, oh god, this is going to be the one that's really going to show the difference between Metallica and Iron Maiden.
Well, yeah, this is where it's a meaningful comparison, and this is where they have gone in opposite directions.
Yeah, I thought, oh god, I've got to go through this. Actually, something's happened over the years. Blackened is a great opening.
Blackened is good.
It's a great opening song.
Yeah.
One obviously is very good. Harvest of Sorrow is very good. Dyers Eve, I just don't understand at all. It just sort of it just finishes, doesn't it?
It's just a thrash song.
Yeah, it's a lot denser. The nice melodies have gone. It's a sort of very how much we can get into a song. That
narrow space. Yeah. How much can you put in there?
Which is a shame, because Master of Puppets, one of the great things is when you actually listen to Master of Puppets, is the transition. It's so smooth. Yeah. Transition between segments is it's barely noticeable. It's just wow. And this, obviously, because they're trying to get so much stuff into a song, you get step changes. Sometimes it almost trips into the next section. It feels like they're showing off. Which is a bit funny, really. Because I never got the impression that they consider themselves master musicians, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I mean, Kirk Hammett's there for that, to give a bit of coolness on the guitar.
Bit of whittle.
Yeah. And that's it, really. I mean, everyone knows that Lars is limited as to what he can do. So why you would do that? But then again, they are sort of trying to capture their sound. I think this is Metallica taking control of Metallica.
I was going to say that's what does Metallica sound like?
Yeah,
is on that album actually.
Yeah, I mean they changed label for this. Oh, there's some more of your facts here.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah, they've changed label, who were very keen to get them on board, so they had a lot of freedom. I had an issue with the producer or something, didn't they? They sacked the first producer.
Yeah, for God's sake. It's become Metallica, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and obviously they needed a new bass player. And it's such a. They obviously feel Cliff Burton's loss was quite unjust, as it was. So they've got this guy in, and I don't think. The story was given no direction whatsoever. He was just put in a studio on his own. It was all the parts were recorded separately. Yeah. In a sort of a live room. Yeah. And they didn't like what he did, so they buried it. Yeah. And it's sort of like, oh God, you can see everything is there
and
for what Metallica is to become.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything, you can see
brilliant, but
all
they've fucked it
there
up.
now. It's all
It is
there.
brilliant. It is.
Yeah.
But they've also completely screwed it up.
So yeah, I mean, actually a lot better than I assumed it was. Simply again, I think it's the Master of Puppets Ride the Lightning thing. So
Yeah.
I didn't Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. They were my first two tapes. My first two album CDs were Justice For All and Black Album. I didn't realise that until this week, that it was so sort of Metallica heavy in the early days. And I think, obviously, Metallica, for someone here who's not really into metal, Black Album is a better introduction.
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, because it's
And
just so.
this.
But then this is more influential, and proper metal sounds like that now. Since that album, unfortunately, it's all super duper compression.
Yeah, it sounds so flat and sterile. So
And you think 65 minutes. You think all the amount in there, the amount of stuff in there, the amount of melodies, the amount of things going on. That's like 40 minutes. And then you think, well, I like the bit that goes no, and the other bit that goes no. It's all the same. And it's 65 minutes of it. I couldn't get through the whole thing.
I got through it, but it was a bit of a, well, I wouldn't say it was a mission, because I was rediscovering it, if you know.
Yeah.
And what I did notice was James Hetfield's lyrics. They're not as good on this. Well, you can't really hear. Well, you can hear them, but it's sort of you can't really hear anything but the drums and
He's a very angry man.
very tinny guitar sound sort of thing.
By this time, he was actually talking about, this is what I do. I like to do.
Yeah.
I don't write about the devil and things like that. I like to write about the inside of your soul.
Yeah.
And actually, he's not really doing that.
Nah, this is much more political, I'd say.
Yeah, and the best thing on there is about a film. So that's really Iron Maiden, actually. Or book. I think it was about the book, and there was a film. They discovered there was a film out later.
His voice is good on this, actually.
Yeah,
Quite,
that's James Hetfield at full power.
Yeah.
It's a shame it's like he's recording to die. Well, it's just like a soundboard, but you got one mic on the drums hanging up high, and all the guitars are plugged in direct, and the microphone is sort of strapped to his face like this, so he can go. And so it does sound horrible. Now, what I wanted to do, what the bit I was looking forward to, which I'm not going to do for a while now, is listen to some live stuff, because I've never really heard it. I've heard some slightly dodgy later live stuff. There's live shit, isn't there? Binge and Purge. I've never heard any of that.
Were you on about Metallica?
Yeah, I want to hear it now. And actually, some of the live stuff of this I'd like to hear.
I actually saw some. They played live in Howard Stern's studio. They played Master of Puppets, Sad But True. Well, those are the two I watched.
Yeah.
Sad But True live in Howard Stern's studio. I think, you bastard, Howard Stern. You're just cock, you get to see Metallica perform live. They're performing for him, basically.
Yeah, him personally. I'm having Metallica.
They're so tight. It is unbelievable, Obviously, these guys have toured a lot. Yeah. But even so, after how many years now of playing Master of Puppets?
Yeah.
They're still there, man. They still bloody love it. And you can see they're just...
Because I know it's a really good song.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to be good, do you remember? Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, this is my favourite Maiden album, Predictable, Boring. And it's one of those things, it's a bit like Led Zeppelin 4, where it's... I didn't really need to listen to it. And actually, I did sort of 2 songs of Justice For All, and I just put on some of this. But otherwise I wouldn't need to listen to it. But the best song here is one. The best song. But it is by far the best thing on Justice For All. By a huge leap, I think. I'd say, Metallica's best songs that aren't on Master of Puppets, that's the easy way to do it, is Whom the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black, One, Sad But True, Unforgiven. Is there anything else on the Black Album? Maybe not. And maybe half of Master of Puppets. That would be their best stuff. So One by far is the best song on that album. So it is the best song here, but it's the only one there that elevates above that for me. And the thing is, it's what I was thinking, can I actually justify this being better than the Black Album? Because it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to say it's better than the Black Album.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, but it's horrible. It's really horrible. It is overall. It's just really flawed. It's not there's too many songs. The songs are too long. And I hope I was tempted just not to say anything about that, and then we'll sort of trigger some Metallica fans saying, you only like short songs. We were talking about musical box last week.
Well, I mean, I normally love long songs.
But then they're not really long songs. They're just songs that carry on.
Yeah.
There's not so much there's changes. There's sort of 4 minutes worth of song of different changes, and they just do it again for 10 minutes instead. You know. But Jones's songwriting is there, just not enough. It's like he hadn't written enough songs.
Well, apparently he hadn't finished writing the songs when they started recording, and it was sort of being written on as they were recording, and he wasn't that interested in it. He was more interested in the sound, getting the sound right.
Because that's what they were thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet that's Lars' fault. I bet that is Lars' fault. It's Lars, controlling James Hetfield. I think that's what it is. And all the subtlety, there's subtlety on Master Puppets. Some of the best rock music ever is on Master Puppets, and
the way they go from that guitar solo to the dun 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 dun. That's amazing. That is.
Yeah, that is actually from Phantom of the Opera. So they're using influences, but there's no question which is better. Amazing piece of music. Well, we'll talk about Cliff in a minute, I think. And it was surreal as well. There was something surreal about it. Made it kind of not heavy, just really good rock music. Whereas this is the Metallica album, and they're heavy because they go, but sort of one-dimensional. That should be self-titled, not Black Album. The Black Album should be called the Black Album, or the Spinal Tap album. And this should be called Metallica, because this is Metallica, recorded in LA, not in Copenhagen. And there you've got the thing. You've got it's a European album. That's what Steve Harris said. It was too European for the Americans. Because this is where the sales dropped off, interestingly. I think that's more to do with the previous albums, actually. Somewhere in Time wasn't as good, so they didn't buy as much as this one. But I'll talk about more of that in a minute. Yeah, so this is very, very American, and that's very, very European. The guitar playing, though, is excellent, fortunately, because that's all you got in the mix.
Yeah.
And you can tell Kirk has progressed. He's moved forward. Remember, he was having lessons in the 80s. And there's neoclassical stuff in there. Little bit of neoclassical stuff in there, a little bit of Ingve. I really like And Justice For All. I know people moan about that one because it's 10 minutes of riffs. I really like that one. I think there's some good stuff on there. So yeah, Kirk's much better on this than he was on Master Puppets, than he was on the previous. I think the problem was because of the change after this, he had to go back to just doing wah, pentatonic, boring. Because you can't do that on top of the Black Album songs. It wouldn't fit. And obviously Lars seems to have taken an enormous backward step. I didn't realise how much he's playing like he does on the Black Album on this. Only the production is so harsh. You can hear the guitars are just so precise. That's what it's all about, isn't it? And there's some drumming in the background that's sort of dum.
I think it's on Blackened. It actually gets your head bobbing, and I think that's all the drummer's got to do for this kind of just get your head going, yeah. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is good. It doesn't really happen as much on which is strange because that's what they're known for, sort of thing. They're chugging.
It occurred to me how the thing about Nico is everyone talks about Peace of Mind and all his great drumming on there, and he kind of faded away over the years. I think he was employed to be reliable. You have to remember, not employed to be a funky, proggy drummer. He's very low in the mix on this, so you can't really hear very much of what he's doing. He's an excellent drummer, obviously, but by now he just sounded like Nico McBrain, and it's a bit meh, to be honest. There's so much on, it's brilliant production, but there's a lot going on there. Apparently it cost a fortune and took months and months and all that stuff, and that's one of the reasons Bruce did Tattooed Millionaire, just a dumb rock album in 2 weeks, because this is such an over-the-top concept album, etc., etc. But yeah, Lars liked Appetite for Destruction, which is 87. So Lars said, yeah, we should get that guy that did Appetite for Destruction. I like the loose live sound of Guns N' Roses because they're kind of, at that point with that original drummer, they've got a real loose, tight but loose sound, and they also did a covers EP. The first thing they did was a covers EP. I forgot what it's called now.
Is it Garage Days Revisited or something like that?
Yes, that one. I can't remember. Yeah, one of them. Because there was an original one before that was Garage Days, but that one was actually recorded in Lars' garage, which was opposite the original garage that they were in before they were famous. So they thought, yeah, we should do that, and that was also fun. But it's supposed to be that type of metal. It's supposed to be studio bound and precise and produced. You're not supposed to hear the flaws in it, particularly when you just compress it. So But actually, think about it. We might, as music fans, we're music fans here. We're reviewing. We might say the same thing as Lars. Change is good. You shouldn't just do Master of Puppets 2. Members of Led Zeppelin have spent their whole career saying we didn't want to do Whole Lot of Love Part 2, 3, 4, and 5. We would have said that, and we might have said, well, I like the thrash sound, but I want to hear the real guitars, the real sound. James Hetfield doesn't really know what he's doing. He's a naturalist. He writes his songs, and then the band sort of put them together for him in a sense. Change is good. I like the first 3, but I want to hear different. I want to hear a more real sound, real guitar crunch. Real guitar crunch sounds terrible. So the story goes, they're on the Master of Puppets tour. Cliff and James were talking about getting rid of Lars. That's the story. Ooh. Okay, which they deny, but it's corroborated by enough people that it was actually said. Whether it was just drunken, oh shit, get rid of him, or whether they were really going to do it is, nobody knows. But you think about it, Cliff, he's going to want to make really interesting music. He wants to move and change and do different stuff. And what's the barrier to a bass player like that? Well, it's the drummer, isn't it? And they were looking to get the drummer from Slayer, allegedly, who at the time would have done it because Slayer weren't rich, And James Hetfield looked up to Cliff. He was like his big brother. And you watch the early footage. There's a bit of Hetfield he looks over at Cliff every now and again for sort of acceptance, because Cliff had mojo and he had the musicality, but he also had sort of principles of sort of no sellout man, all the things you would make fun of. And it turns out it was just him, because history's proved the moment he was gone, they just did what the fuck they liked and just did music videos and sold out completely and went really commercial and all the rest of it, And they didn't hire another. Well, they didn't try and replace Cliff. Obviously, you don't. That's quite right. But instead of doing that, they got someone who was just a fan of the band. You got a fan of Kate Bush and Bach and Leonard Skinner who understands the music, versus a Metallica fan. And obviously, the guy Jason Newsted doesn't stand a chance. Now, everyone that was around at the time who's not in the band say there's nothing wrong with his bass playing. He was fine. There's talk of James Hetfield playing some of the bass on there. You would never know because you can't hear it anyway because they turned it down. And the way they treated him is awful. I didn't realise how bad it was. And it's not just initiation in the band stuff. It sounds awful. They just treated him like shit and they hated him. And Lars went to the management at one point and said, we've got to get rid of him, he's no good. And the management said, no, you made your decision, shut up, get on with it. You're going to make lots of money. It was 5 weeks after the accident. They played a gig with Jason Newsted. 5 weeks. And the management persuaded them, best way of grieving is to get on with it. And that's what Cliff would have wanted, blah, 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 blah. And really, because commercially it was. And the problem is, that point they were at, it was they had to carry on. And history shows, because they carried on, they became enormous. And had they not, if they'd taken a year off, say, that might not have happened. But it did, it wasn't a good thing personally or musically. It seems obvious, doesn't it? James Hetfield had lost the plot by the sounds of things. After he died, they got completely plastered. That was the thing. What you should do is you need to drink, get yourselves into oblivion. And supposedly, people heard James Hetfield outside walking around saying, "Cliff, where are you?" So it was pretty messed up. And I don't think it mattered what they released at this point. Whatever that album was sounding like, that was going to be massively influential, and everybody was going to hear it. So yeah, Cliff dying ruined rock music forever. Discuss. I think that's because right there you've got the future and the past, and it's quite depressing. However good they are, those albums, everything went one-dimensional and.
You've got to remember this is sort of, I wouldn't say rock music. I mean, it's metal, yeah. Which is a fairly distinct subset.
It is now, after that, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of...
it got more distinct over time.
Yeah.
And Steve Harris is responsible for that as well. His zealous nature as well. These chords.
Yeah. I don't know what ruined rock music.
I mean, okay, you take it to extremes. You go in this direction, you go to Supper's Ready. You go in this direction, you go to, I don't know what it's called, Rollin' by Limp Bizkit.
Roll.
That's what it is. That's what I'm saying. You know.
Is that the end game? Because sort of Limp Bizkit was sort of it was the music.
Crap. It's crap.
It was Simon Cowell, wasn't it? It was the Simon Cowells of the world getting involved in metal. I suppose you could say that. I don't know if it's anything to do with the sound. It's probably more to do with the sales. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is sold like buggery, like, you know.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And that's a good thing. That opened the door for all the really heavy stuff, death, and obituary, and all the fantastic stuff that got record deals because of probably that album, not the Black Album, that album. So that's a good thing.
I mean, you could say probably the end game of this was Korn or something like that. I can't remember what it was. That was
Korn are good.
Yeah, which are all right. What killed rock? I don't know.
MTV.
Yeah.
That's what Dio said.
Probably.
It killed his career. That's what he meant. It's as if Jimmy Page died after Led Zeppelin 3 and they carried on without him. You wouldn't have had Led Zeppelin 4, you know? You would have had In Through the Outdoor, basically, and then one that's not quite as good as In Through the Outdoor, and then like a Plant solo album, and then something even worse, and then a covers album, which is pretty good, actually.
Yeah. Maybe the most significant aspect of this album is the bit on the back where it says Management, Q Prime Inc. And they are sort of a very relentless, drain every cent out of Metallica that you can.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's probably.
And actually, I mean, what you said. What I said, that they got them to get a bass player immediately.
Yeah.
And tour 5 weeks later. That was financial, 100% financial. It was a terrible idea. Screwed them up. But the momentum was there, so it didn't matter. It carried on anyway.
You just got to keep it going, keep the show on the road.
Yeah, and maybe they don't mind there because they're all billionaires, aren't they?
Yeah, it's whatever they release just seems to sell like hotcakes. So in one sense, you could say it's keeping rock alive.
Well, all change is good.
They keep releasing albums which debut at number one.
Yeah, and you know, Iron Maiden couldn't lead the way into the changing of rock music because Iron Maiden always sound the same. Iron Maiden are Iron Maiden, they make Iron Maiden albums.
It just seems such an unlikely band to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. You know, I don't think Cliff would still be in the band now. I can't see that. Things would have been so different if Cliff was still there, and that album wouldn't have existed. It would have been something different. There are odd stories, though. What's his name? Sharp Young, the guy, he writes books, but I think he was a journalist back then. Supposedly, on that tour in Europe, the last conversation he had with Cliff, because he was waiting for Lars to arrive, he did an interview with Cliff instead, was about John Bonham and about what they would do if Lars died. And of course he said, well, we'd replace him. You know, the driver of the bus has never been named, and there's all sorts of stories about he changed his name and he was still driving bands around, or was there a driver? Or was there no driver, so one of their entourage? Maybe. It's a conspiracy theory kind of thing. There's something, not all the pieces are there. It's pretty grim if you read about what happened, you know. So yeah, we're comparing these because everybody did it at the time. You know, and people said that this was cost a fortune and was a huge labour of something perfect. And everyone's saying, well, we've heard that. This is the new exciting young stuff, you know. And it's just like, it occurred to me, you know, when Van Halen supported Sabbath in 1978, and the thing at the time was, oh, Van Halen, it's so exciting, Sabbath boring old farts, you know. Van Halen was shiny and new and tapping. And now people say, what? Van Halen? They're boring. They're really boring. They had Sabbath. Of course Sabbath are better, you know. But at the time, it's different, isn't it? You know? Yeah. So there's no way you can, I mean, this is a fantastic piece of, and it is comic book, you know, but the comic book Metallica were doing was you know, pictures of skulls with blood on them and all that business. Although they kept them off the album covers, their T-shirts, they did have like a Derek Riggs character doing Eddie type, which was even dumber. It was all violent, a hand with hatred on it, you know, real Beavis and Butthead stuff, but they've kept it off the album covers because they recognise it as being stupid. They knew their fans liked it, but they still didn't put it on the album because they tried they took themselves more seriously. And there's an element of, it all takes itself so seriously, doesn't it? But that's not a bad thing, really, is it? Yeah. So Seventh Son of Seventh Son, my favourite Maiden album, surprise for the band as well. Actually, they didn't expect to make such a good album. I think there's a 3-album decline from Peace of Mind, and then you've got Power Slave, and then you've got Somewhere in Time. They're all good, but I think there was a decline there. So I'm not surprised about what happened. That in the US, the sales declined, and Steve Harris says it was too European for the Americans. I think things move slower in the US because it's a bigger place. I'm sure the sales of that were the effect of Somewhere in Time, actually. They came back. It took a long time, but I think in 2005, Matter of Life and Death was number 1 in the US. But it was their second UK number 1 album. They had 3 through that sort of period of their career. Interestingly, there was Number of the Beast, Seventh Son, and then Fear of the Dark were all number 1. So that all those albums were big in the UK, which is interesting. And yeah, remember we were talking about Bruce was broken after Power Slave. He wrote some songs. He wrote one song that went da 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 on an acoustic guitar, and it was all rejected. The band said, no, sorry, that's not my Maiden. And it was acoustic as well. And it's interesting, you watch the interviews, and one band member says it wasn't really because there was anything wrong with it, it was just because it was acoustic. And another one says, it wasn't because it was acoustic, it just wasn't really good enough. It just wasn't on, Bruce saw a trilogy of Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, and Power Slave. Because it is, So he thought, he wanted, like Lars there, he saw, they've got to do their Led Zeppelin 4 now. They've got to do the Dark Side of the Moon. They've got to go to the next level, haven't they, And it's Steve Harris was saying, no, we're making the next Iron Maiden album. And it's going to sound like Iron Maiden. So they did, they just made another Iron Maiden album. And actually, it's the biggest change. Somewhere in Time, it is the 80s album. There is keyboards on it. That's as far as they went 80s-wise. And it's Adrian Smith, remember, who was, of course, replaced Dennis Stratton, who wasn't metal enough. Adrian Smith went 80s. He was the only one who was sucked into the 80s vortex, which was important because he helped write the singles. But on that album, because Bruce didn't contribute anything, he wrote a song on his own. It's Wasted Years, and it's all right. They still play it. I think it's just... but that had a B-side, which was a dodgy 80s Reacher thing, which wasn't allowed on the album because it was too 80s. So it was all a bit... I can see how people would have thought, they've gone 80s now. It's kind of like when Falling Into Infinity came out by Dream Theater, and I thought, they're just like that now. They've gone 90s. They've boring, And of course they went back, but I never... At the time I thought, that's it now. They're boring. And it must have been the same thing. So it is mysterious, really, that what happened, they all sort of came together for the next album. Bruce is back, you've got his autobiographical thing, Can I Play With Madness? Because he's messed up, and that song, that melody came from Adrian Smith. Originally it was On the Wings of Eagles. You can imagine that on an Adrian Smith solo album. So Bruce made it Can I Play With Madness? So you've got Bruce's autobiographical thing in there. And it fits with the concept as well. But not only that, but Steve Harris has co-written that as well. He added the Jimmy Page bit in the middle, So, and there's several songs on here written by all 3 of them. Interestingly, and even a Bruce and Steve Harris song at the end. So and they don't know why that happened. It's just what naturally happened. And we've got a new Dave Murray song, The Prophecy. Probably the weakest song there, but it makes the album structure work perfectly, and it's probably his best song, I think. And actually, The Prophecy's got a little bit of acoustic-y thing, sort of Cod Renaissance thing, which is lifted straight from Heaven and Hell. It's the end of Heaven and Hell. There's that bit, and there's a bit of that on Justice For All as well. And it occurred to me, actually, the best bits of Justice For All, apart from maybe one, are the bits that sound like Iron Maiden. So Kirk is still doing really well. It's the other 2. That's the problem, maybe, hasn't it? Big fan of The Evil That Men Do. That's such a great song. Bit obvious, quoting Shakespeare. It's the Joan Baez chords from that song. You all know which song I mean. I love Infinite Dreams. They do sound like Iron Maiden now, so they're not very tight. If you actually hear the playing, it's not very tight at all. They are tight but loose, like we were talking about Guns N' Roses, weren't we? But with all the production and everything, it's got so much character. The Can I Play With Man? Obviously, Can I Play With Madness was the single. That was effectively the Bruce and Adrian single with help from Steve, and it's got pop value to it, without it sort of being that's the single. It's brilliant, and it's what a great song, And the music video features, of course, the final appearance of Graham Chapman ever. That was his last thing he did. And there's a thing, my Maiden has got Python in its genes. That's in there. There's a Python thing, not a huge amount, but it is in there. Metallica wouldn't even be able to get a Python anywhere near them, let alone actually having a stylistic thing in their music. Only 2 albums sound like this. It's those two, and then Bruce changed and the band changed. Sadly, because of what happened commercially, of course, everyone said, "Well, this is the new stuff," and this didn't sell as well as the other albums. They thought they have to do the same thing, and we're going to be done with the kids now. We're going to be raw and live sound. We'll get the Rolling Stones truck bloody from the '60s and record an album really roughly. And so that made Adrian Smith left, and it was. I think No Prayer for the Dying, the next album, is actually their worst album. There's great stuff on there, but it's still their weakest album. So that's their Justice For All, effectively. But Bruce is much better singer, in much better technique after this. This was I don't know whether this wasn't maintainable the way he was singing after Powerslave. He's certainly more consistent. He didn't use his top register, so he had to take off the top of his register. So some of the old songs sounded terrible because he just didn't sing the high bits. He just went. The worst versions of "Hallowed Be Thy Name" are from 86, 87, 88, guaranteed. He was probably more into his fencing at this point. I think he got like 8th in the world or something, and supposedly he almost missed a gig because he was doing so well in this competition and had to race to the gig. But yeah, so Bruce's voice after this, far better. He I don't know, maybe he had singing lessons or something, where he could sing consistently and in tune and everything. It was fantastic. It's a shame
you said
he didn't have that technique on here. But here, Moonchild, you've got what he's doing now. There's this new sort of Alice Cooper in there as well. And it's much more theatrical. It's like Alice Cooper meets Ian Gillan, just on Moonchild. You've got the weird vibrato Ian Gillan thing, and you've got Alice Cooper. I won't do an impression. So that's great. 5 eggs, 4 eggs.
I'm gonna cop out and say 4 eggs each. I think
We did it. We've done it.
we made it.
It's done, and it was done, and there it is. And like I said, there's lots of facts to say. You read Wikipedia or read some books. It'll be fine. Actually, I think Mick Wall did a biography of both bands. Well, we certainly did Metallica. That's what I'm reading right now. There is the official biography of Maiden. Is that Mick Wall? Someone can tell me in the comments, because obviously I don't know. You can use Wikipedia and tell me some ready available information. Thank you. So yeah, we've done metal. I don't want to do any more metal. Yeah, there we go. But we've pressed reset now, so that's good.
What are we going to do next week?
Do you want to do... cool, right, great. See you next week. Goodbye.